I bet you're joining us for this deep dive because, like me, you're fascinated by AI.
It really is amazing.
Yeah, and especially like its potential to change how businesses, especially solopreneurs and SMEs,
Yeah,
can operate, right?
absolutely.
And, how we can use it to be as efficient as possible.
Totally.
So we've got a lot of fascinating interviews to go through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, perspectives from, entrepreneurs, consultants, investors. We even have a few employees.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, from like all sorts of industries, tech, finance, insurance, marketing. I mean, we cover a lot of ground.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're going to uncover some of the real-world challenges and opportunities they're facing,
Yeah.
and then we'll dive deep into the practical ways they're using AI and automation every day.
Love it.
Our
Okay.
expert is here to guide us. I mean, he's been poring over all this material. What's really stood out to you?
What I find so intriguing is how these interviews go way beyond the hype. They're not just talking about AI in theory. We're getting a glimpse into how people are actually using it day to day.
I completely agree. I think it's fascinating how people are taking this kind of theoretical, oh, AI can do everything, to actually, here's how I'm using it in my business.
The rubber meets the road.
It is.
Yeah.
And what's working and what's not.
Right. Like, for example, we talked to Melissa.
Oh, yeah, Melissa,
Yeah.
the financial advisor.
Yeah, and she's already saving around 2 hours per client
Wow.
just by using this automated system for creating proposals.
You know what? That is a total game changer for a solopreneur. I mean, if you're out there running your own business,
I mean, 2 hours per client. Think about how much time that frees up.
that is a huge amount of time.
Yeah, and the impact on like work-life balance.
Totally, totally. But before we dive into those solutions, let's talk about the problems, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are people turning to AI in the first place? I feel like almost everyone we interviewed, they mentioned spending way too much time on manual tasks that really could be automated.
Yeah, it's such a common theme. And, this need for efficiency isn't just coming from those like big corporations. We heard the same thing from solopreneurs and small business owners.
Makes sense. I mean,
Right.
everyone's looking to get more done.
Totally. And one example that comes to mind is Ursula.
Ursula.
Yeah, she's a marketing consultant, and she spends a ton of time on repetitive tasks, like setting up ad campaigns.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Oh, it's tedious, right? Imagine doing that week after week.
Yeah, I don't miss those days. But, that's where I think the true promise of AI and automation really comes in.
Yeah, I think it's about more than just saving time, though. It's about, like, what you can do with that extra time.
It is?
Like Melissa, the financial advisor.
Yeah.
Instead of spending those 2 hours on proposals, she's using that time to build relationships.
Right.
Deeper relationships with clients.
Absolutely. And actually providing, like, better, more tailored advice.
More personalized financial advice.
Exactly. I mean, that's where the real value lies.
That's the difference maker, yeah. And it's not just about the time savings. I mean, we're also seeing AI leading to higher quality work, fewer errors.
Right.
Because it's, machines doing the repetitive stuff.
Consistently and perfectly, almost, right?
Yeah. And I think this is important. It's not just about those huge, complex AI implementations.
Right.
Even just automating like small, repetitive tasks can make a massive difference in your overall efficiency and productivity.
That's music to my ears, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it is to any solopreneurs or small business owners listening.
Totally. Like, you don't need to have a massive budget
Right.
or like a team of engineers to get started with this stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
But let's be real. I mean, finding the right AI tools can
Yeah.
feel so overwhelming.
Right. And I think that's a common challenge that a lot of the people we talked to brought up. Like,
Yeah.
the vendor landscape is just flooded. And it's tough to sift through it all.
Yeah, it's like, where do you even begin?
Yeah. And I mean, so many of the interviewees told us how frustrating it was to find vendors who really understood their needs. They often felt like they were just being offered generic solutions
Right.
instead of something tailored to like their specific challenges.
It's like going to the doctor with a headache and they just give you like a general painkiller
Yeah.
without even figuring out what's causing the headache.
Right, exactly. Like, you might get some relief, but it doesn't address the root cause.
The Band-Aid.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, one expert, Nathan, he offered a really interesting analogy, I thought.
Oh, tell me about it.
So he compared finding the right AI solution to like getting an MRI for your business. You need to understand the underlying issues before you can prescribe any kind of
You
treatment.
got to diagnose before you prescribe. Love that.
Right. I thought it was such a good analogy. And that kind of leads to this big idea that he really emphasized, data maturity. Okay, so let's unpack that a bit, because I think this is a really crucial concept. What exactly is data maturity?
Data maturity is essentially a measure of, like, how well organized, accessible, and usable your data is.
So it's not just about having a lot of data. It's about having the right kind of data
Yeah.
and having it in a format that's actually useful.
Exactly. And Nathan emphasized that a lot of businesses, they just aren't ready to fully leverage, things like generative AI.
Okay, let's back up one more time then. What's generative AI? Is that like ChatGPT?
Yeah, exactly. Like think ChatGPT, DALL-E, tools like that. Generative AI refers to systems that can create new content, text, images, even code.
Wow.
But they depend heavily on good quality data, like organized data.
Ah, I see.
If your data is a mess or it's incomplete, or you can't even access it easily,
Right.
generative AI is not going to be able to do its thing.
So it's like trying to, I don't know, like bake a cake with like bad ingredients. You're not going to get a very good cake.
You need that high quality input.
You need that solid foundation.
Exactly. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand.
Right. It just won't work.
It's not going to hold up.
So you need that strong foundation of clean, well-structured data.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say you've got your data situation figured out and you found some promising AI tools. What's next?
Well, then comes the strategic implementation part.
Ah, okay.
And this is where, like, the human element is so important.
Okay, so it's not just about plugging in a new piece of software and expecting magic to happen.
Definitely not. Like,
Yeah.
technology alone isn't enough. You've got to think about the people who are going to be using these tools.
Right.
Think about their workflows and how AI is going to fit into their day-to-day work.
Right, like how is this going to actually change how they do their job?
Exactly. And Lori, who's had tons of experience with software implementation,
Okay.
she stressed how important communication and training are.
Right, makes sense.
She actually told this story about a rollout that went really well because they spent so much time making sure that everyone understood the why.
The why.
Yeah, like, why are we implementing this new software?
Right, like what's the purpose?
And, how to use it effectively.
Oh, so it's about bringing people along on the journey,
Yes.
not just like dropping a new tool on their desk and saying, figure it out.
Exactly. And if you're looking for a way to, like, really analyze your current processes
Okay.
and figure out where AI could be the most beneficial,
Right.
there's this really cool tool called process mining.
Oh, tell me more. I've heard of that, but I don't really know what it is.
So process mining basically allows you to examine your existing workflows, and pinpoint exactly where things are slowing down
Okay.
or where there's, like, potential for automation.
So it's kind of like taking like an X-ray of your business operations.
Yeah, totally. Or, like, putting them under a microscope.
I love that.
One of the people we talked to, they mentioned how process mining helped them speed up the initial phases of an automation project, like months significantly.
Really?
Yeah, saving them tons of time and resources.
I love tools that save time and resources. So this sounds incredibly useful.
Yeah, and especially if you're thinking about, like, automating at a larger scale.
Right. So we've talked about data maturity, strategic implementation, and this idea of process mining. Is there anything else we need to keep in mind when bringing AI into our business?
One crucial factor that often gets overlooked is user experience.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about making sure the tools are easy and enjoyable to use.
Oh, so it's not just about functionality. It's also about the actual experience of using the tools.
Exactly. Like, you could have the most powerful AI tool in the world,
Yeah.
but if it's clunky, confusing, or requires, like, hours of training, no one's going to want to use it.
Oh, 100%. I've definitely downloaded apps and been like, I have no idea what's going on here.
You've all been there.
And then deleted it,
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess the takeaway is when you're evaluating these AI tools, don't just look at the features.
Right.
Actually think about what it's like to use them.
Yeah, like, does it feel intuitive?
Right.
Does it integrate well with your existing workflows?
Does it make your life easier?
Exactly. You want tools that empower your team. You don't want tools that frustrate them.
Absolutely. One of the interviewees mentioned ClickUp
Oh, yeah, the project management tool.
as an example of like a powerful tool that can be pretty complex
It can be.
and it requires a lot of time to learn.
Yeah, it's a steep learning curve.
Okay, so prioritize user experience.
Yeah.
Got it. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, cost.
Okay.
These AI tools aren't free, are they?
No, they're not. But I think it's crucial to think about the return on investment.
The ROI. as they say.
Exactly. Like, yeah, there might be an upfront cost,
Right.
but consider the potential long-term savings, in terms of time, reduced errors, increased efficiency.
Yeah. You're investing in your future.
Absolutely. Zubair, who's a consultant we talked to, he charges £1,250 per week for his services.
Okay.
And that might seem like a lot, but if his expertise helps you streamline your operations
Right.
and ultimately generate way more revenue, it's worth it.
Right.
It's an investment.
So it's not just about the sticker price.
Right.
Right. It's about the potential value
Exactly.
of what it can bring to your business.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the future of AI in specific industries.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, so we gathered some really fascinating insights about insurance and finance.
Okay, what's going on in those worlds?
It seems like the insurance industry is kind of lagging behind in terms of AI adoption,
Interesting.
which means there's a massive opportunity for innovation.
So there's a chance for someone to come in and really disrupt the space.
Big time.
Exciting. What about finance?
In finance, the human element is still super important, especially when it comes to building trust with clients. But we're seeing AI being used to automate things like data gathering, and analysis.
So it's freeing up those financial advisors to focus on building those relationships.
Exactly. To focus on those more complex, human-centered aspects of their jobs.
So AI is not replacing them. It's making them better at what they do.
So regardless of what industry you're in, it's essential to stay informed about the evolving AI landscape and see how these advancements can impact your field.
I completely agree. And I think what's really resonating with me is that it's not just about adopting the latest shiny tech.
No.
It's about understanding what problems AI can solve for your specific business.
Exactly.
And then finding the right tools to address those challenges.
100%. It's about using AI strategically and thoughtfully.
Right. To make your business better, not just to say, hey, we're using AI.
And to create real value for both your business and your customers. One thing that really stood out to me from all these interviews was this focus on specific pain points, like not just chasing the latest AI trends.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like everyone had a specific problem they were trying to solve.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in all the hype, but the most successful implementations we heard about were all driven by a clear understanding of, a real business need.
Right. Like, it's not about doing AI just for the sake of doing it. It's about finding the right tool for the right job.
100%. For example, remember Ursula?
The marketing consultant.
Yeah. She was saying how much she'd love a tool to help with lead generation and outreach.
Oh, yeah. Those are such crucial tasks for her business.
Absolutely. But they can be so incredibly time-consuming.
Yeah, I mean, those are things that AI could really excel at.
For sure. So it's about using AI to solve those real-world challenges, not just for the novelty of it.
Absolutely. And, that brings us to another important point. Change management.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Because implementing AI and automation often means changing how people work.
Absolutely.
And how teams collaborate.
And that can be really challenging.
Yeah, both for individuals and for organizations.
One entrepreneur, Andres, he really stressed the importance of finding tools that are, easy to use and integrate with existing workflows.
Makes sense. You don't want to make things even more complicated.
Exactly. He said, if you're spending hours learning a new tool or constantly switching between different platforms, it defeats the whole purpose of automation in the first place.
Totally. It's you're adding more work, not less.
Right, exactly. It's a recipe for frustration.
And probably inefficiency, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it just highlights how crucial it is to consider the human side of things when implementing AI.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the technology. It's about how people actually interact with it.
It makes me think about how we evaluate these tools. Should ease of use be more important than the number of features?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on your needs. Your team's technical skills, the complexity of the tasks you're trying to automate.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it all comes back to that idea of starting with a clear understanding of what your pain points are.
Right.
And then finding the right tool to address those.
Exactly. Now, another key takeaway from these interviews, I thought, was that AI and automation are not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Definitely not. What works for one business might not work for another.
So it seems like customization and personalization are really key here.
For sure. And I think we saw that in the different approaches people were taking to AI implementation.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, some businesses are building totally custom solutions, specifically tailored to their needs,
Yeah, that makes sense.
if you have the resources and expertise to do that.
Right, if you have big budget.
Exactly. But for a lot of smaller businesses, it might make more sense to use existing tools and platforms.
Right, something that's more off the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw both of those approaches in our interviews. For example, Abdullah, an entrepreneur from Saudi Arabia, he's building an entire ecosystem of AI tools for his company.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Yeah, he's got this vision of a fully automated company,
Wow.
and he's investing in making that happen.
So he's really going all in on AI.
Big time. But then, on the other hand, we talked to Tony, a marketer, and he's using existing tools like SEMrush, to automate his content creation and personalize his outreach.
So he's finding success by kind of piecing together different tools.
Exactly. Leveraging what's already out there and what works well with his current workflows.
So it sounds like there's no right or wrong way to approach AI implementation.
Totally. It's about finding what works best for you.
For your business, for your goals.
Exactly. And that leads to another important point. How is AI being used to actually optimize operations across different industries?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. It seems like marketing is a prime candidate for automation. There are just so many repetitive tasks involved.
Tons, like creating content, scheduling social media posts, sending email campaigns.
Yeah, it's a marketer's dream, potentially.
Right. And remember Ursula?
Uh-huh.
She was talking about wanting a tool for lead generation and outreach.
Oh, right.
And she even mentioned this tool that can personalize messages.
Oh, wow.
By pulling data on the recipient.
That's cool.
And tailoring the message to their interests.
That sounds like it could save so much time and effort.
Yeah, it's incredible. Imagine how much more effective your marketing could be.
Right, because you're not just sending out these generic blasts.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think AI has the potential to revolutionize marketing.
Totally. But it's not just marketing, right?
No, not at all. We also heard about AI being used in finance, insurance, software development.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about insurance.
So we talked to Fareed, who works in insurance, and he highlighted this challenge of reviewing all these documents to identify potential risks.
Right. That sounds tedious.
And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, the number of vendors are many. The number of vendors that understand are few. The number of vendors that can understand and deliver are rare.
Wow. So there's a real need for AI solutions that can actually make sense of all that data.
Totally, to sift through all those documents and flag any red flags.
So there's a huge opportunity there for AI to make a real impact.
Absolutely. And in finance, remember Melissa?
The financial advisor.
Yeah. She's using AI to automate her financial proposals.
Oh, yeah, she mentioned that.
Which saves her tons of time.
I mean, that's a task that requires so much accuracy.
For sure.
And attention to detail.
Yeah, it can be really time-consuming.
So it frees her up to focus on the more human aspects of her job.
Exactly. Building those relationships with her clients.
It's so interesting how AI can, augment those human capabilities.
Totally. And we saw something similar in software development. One developer, Aldi, described a system that he created to track his team's progress in real time.
Oh.
So he can see exactly what everyone's working on.
At any given moment.
Yeah. And that allows him to identify bottlenecks, optimize workflows, make sure everyone's being efficient.
It's like having a bird's eye view of the entire operation.
Exactly. And it helps him make data-driven decisions.
About resources, about project management.
So across all these different industries, there's this common thread. AI is being used to automate tasks, streamline workflows, and free up humans to focus on, those higher value activities.
Right. So it's not about replacing humans. It's about making us better at what we do.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder.
One thing that I've noticed coming up a lot in our conversation is this idea of data.
Data.
Yeah, we've talked about data maturity, data quality, data-driven decision-making. It seems like data is the fuel that powers the AI engine.
That's a great point. And, Brooks, a consultant we talked to who specializes in operational excellence, he said something that really drives home this importance of data. He said, people think they know what they do. They'll tell you, hey, this happens once in 100. And then you look at the data and you're like, yeah, this is 20% of the time.
Wow. So we might not have as good a grasp of what's actually happening as we think we do.
Sometimes our perceptions don't match reality.
Right. And that's where data can really be helpful. It can give us that objective view.
Exactly. And help us make more informed decisions.
So it's not just about implementing AI. It's about using data to make sure we're making the right choices for our businesses.
Absolutely. That data-driven approach is so essential for optimizing operations, identifying those bottlenecks, and getting the most out of AI.
Now, one thing that came up a lot in these interviews was the challenge of finding the right AI vendors.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, the landscape is so crowded.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming to figure out where to start.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest frustrations people talked about was the abundance of generic solutions. They didn't really address their specific needs.
Right. So businesses are looking for solutions that really understand their industry.
And their unique challenges.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Totally. So you got to do your research, ask the right questions.
Right.
And don't be afraid to say no if it doesn't feel like a good fit.
Don't settle for a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the importance of strategic implementation.
Okay, let's talk about that. What does strategic implementation actually look like in the context of AI?
Well, it starts with a plan.
A plan. Like a business plan.
Kinda, yeah. Like you wouldn't build a house without a blueprint, right? Exactly. You got to know where you're going, how you're going to get there, what you're trying to achieve.
And you need the right tools and materials.
Absolutely. And when it comes to AI and automation, those tools and materials include things like data,
Okay.
expertise, and the right technology.
So it's about setting yourself up for success from the very beginning.
Exactly. And one framework that came up a lot was this idea of agile development.
Agile. I've heard of that. But remind me, how does that apply to AI?
So agile is all about being flexible and iterative.
Okay.
You're constantly learning and adapting as you go.
So it's not about setting this rigid plan and sticking to it no matter what.
No, it's about being able to adjust as needed.
Right, because with AI, things are changing so fast.
Exactly. And that agility is key to staying ahead of the curve.
So we've talked about having a plan, being agile, having the right resources. What are some concrete strategies for actually implementing AI effectively?
One key takeaway was this idea of starting small. Focus on quick wins.
Okay, I like that. It sounds manageable.
Right. Don't try to automate everything all at once.
Yeah, that would be overwhelming.
Right. Just pick one specific pain point, one task that's taking up a ton of time or resources,
Okay.
and focus on automating that.
And once you've got that working, you can move on to other areas.
Exactly. It's about building momentum.
Right, and proving the value of AI.
And speaking of your team, they got to be involved from the beginning.
So don't just drop this new AI tool on them and expect them to figure it out.
No way. Communication is key.
Like, explain why you're doing this.
Tell them how it will benefit them.
Right. Make them feel like they're part of the process.
And don't forget about training and support.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
They got to know how to use these new tools.
So set them up for success. Now, one thing I'm curious about is, how do we know if our efforts are actually working?
That's where measurement comes in. Before you even start implementing AI,
Okay.
you got to set some goals. Like,
Well,
what are you trying to achieve?
Okay, so you can measure your progress.
Exactly. And don't just focus on things like time saved or cost reductions.
Where else should we be looking at?
Think about things like employee satisfaction,
Oh, okay.
customer feedback, and how it's impacting your overall business goals.
So take a holistic view.
Exactly. Make sure it's delivering value across the board.
Now, one potential pitfall we've heard a lot about is data quality,
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
because AI relies on data.
If your data is bad, your results are going to be bad.
Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. So you got to make sure your data is accurate, complete, and consistent.
It's like trying to bake a cake with rotten eggs.
Right. It's not going to turn out well.
You're not going to get a good cake.
You got to use high-quality ingredients.
So data is the fuel for AI.
Exactly. As we wrap up this part of the conversation, I want to emphasize that AI and automation, they're not a magic bullet.
Right, it's not a quick fix.
It's not like you just plug it in and everything's perfect.
Right.
It takes careful planning, strategic implementation, and a willingness to, adapt and learn as you go.
Yeah, because things are changing so fast.
Exactly. And I think one thing that's really encouraging is that it's becoming so much easier to get started with AI and automation. There are tons of resources out there. Online courses, tutorials, affordable software.
It's good to hear, because I think a lot of solopreneurs and SMEs might be feeling intimidated by AI. They think it's too complex or too expensive.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a tech expert or have a huge budget to start exploring these possibilities.
So where do you recommend they start? If someone's listening and thinking, okay, I want to dip my toes into this AI thing, what's step one?
I always say, start small. You
Yeah.
know, kick one specific pain point in your business and find a tool that can help you with that.
So don't try to automate everything at once.
Exactly. Like it could be something as simple as automating your email responses
Right.
or scheduling your social media posts.
Okay.
Just start with something manageable.
So find a quick win, build some momentum,
Yeah,
and then learn as you go.
exactly. And remember, AI is constantly evolving, so it's an ongoing process.
You always got to be learning and adapting. Now, one question that I think a lot of people have is about the impact of AI on jobs.
Yeah.
Like, are robots going to replace us all?
Yeah, it's a valid concern, but I think what we're seeing is that AI is more likely to augment our capabilities rather than replace us entirely. Think about it like this. The invention of the car, it didn't eliminate the need for transportation.
Right.
It just changed how we get around.
That's a great analogy. So it's not about being afraid of AI. It's about figuring out how we can use it to our advantage.
Exactly. Like AI can handle all those repetitive, time-consuming tasks. And that frees up humans to focus on more creative, strategic work, like problem solving, building relationships.
And we saw that in a lot of the interviews, right? Like
Hmm.
Melissa using AI to create proposals so she can spend more time with clients.
Hmm.
Or Aldi using AI to track his team's progress so he can focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly. It's about letting AI handle the things that machines are good at so that humans can focus on the things that we're good at.
I love that. It's all about finding that balance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what are some of the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, I think first and foremost, I want them to understand that AI and automation are not just futuristic concepts anymore. They are accessible tools that can benefit businesses of all sizes.
That's so important. It's not about being a tech expert. It's about understanding how AI can solve your business challenges.
Exactly. And I think another big takeaway is the importance of data. Like having good quality data and the ability to use it effectively is essential for AI
Keep that
success.
data house in order.
Exactly. And lastly, I think it's important to remember that this is a journey. Don't be afraid to experiment, learn as you go, because the world of AI is constantly changing.
Stay curious. Keep exploring.
It's been such a fascinating conversation. I always learn so much from these deep dives.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure.
So to wrap things up for our listeners today, I want to leave you with this thought. AI and automation are here to stay. They have the potential to transform how we work and live. Embrace the possibilities, explore the tools and resources that are out there, and start building the future you want to see.
And remember, the most important step is the first one. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect solution. Just start small, experiment, and learn as you go. The future is yours to create.